Hi everyone, it's Rachel. The reason this video is called Explanation of the Knit Stitch and not How to Do a Knit Stitch is because I want you to actually learn what's going on when you're knitting. I could just show you the movement a few times or teach you a catchy children's rhyme to memorize, but I think you'll do much better if you actually understand the meaning behind it. This lesson will be split into two parts, the first part being the explanation of the stitch, and the second part will be showing you exactly what to do. So if you don't want to know what you're doing or why you're doing it, just go ahead and skip to part 2. Otherwise, we're going to jump right in. If you look at this piece here, you can see multiple individual rows of stitches right next to each other. Each of these rows is made up of all the loops that were on the needle at the same time. Now what makes these stitches is simply pulling another loop of yarn through the loop below it. You can see this is a loop coming through this one's coming through this loop, and so on. Now the right side of this piece, or the side you look at when it's finished, is knit stitches. The wrong side is purl stitches. You'll learn about purl stitches in the next lesson. When you're knitting, you're working both the right and wrong sides of the fabric. When you finish a row, you turn your piece around to work back the next row, because you always knit by moving stitches from your left needle to your right. You'll notice that with the knit stitch, the top of each loop is behind the new loop coming through it. This is what separates a knit stitch from a purl stitch. This piece is knit in what is referred to as stockinette stitch, which means that all the rows appears as knit on the right side, and the back appears as all purl stitches. It is made by knitting the right side rows to push the loops to the back, and then you purl the wrong side rows to keep all the tops of your loops on this side. Now if you work every row as knit stitches, you end up with what's called garter stitch. And you see you have these little ridges on both sides of your work. This creates a uniform double-sided piece because each row that you work, you're just pushing the tops of the loop to the other side. And you just continue to do that. This is what you're going to be able to make when we finish this lesson. So what makes a knit stitch do what it does? When knitting, you always hold the needle with the working loops, or the loops you still need to work, in your left hand, and your empty needle, where your stitches will end up, in your right hand. Your yarn will be hanging in the back of your work when you make a knit stitch. And when you make this, you're going to be pushing the loop you're creating from the back, which is why your yarn starts back there, and then you're going to push it through the front, which covers up the stitch below it. That ends the explanation of the knit stitch. Be sure to watch part 2 to learn the steps to make this happen. Thanks, and have fun knitting! So we have our 2 needles here, and I've already worked a few rows just to make it a little bit easier for you to see this. So if you take a look at the loops on your needles, you can see the stitches are a little bit twisted while they're on your needle, but if you were to kind of pull on them, you can see that this side is going to end up as the front of the stitch. So the left side is the front of your stitch. Now, remember, to make a knit stitch, we need our new loop in front of this old stitch. So you're going to hold your needle with your stitches cast on in your left hand, and it can help to place your index finger on that first stitch to kind of hold it on, give you a little bit extra grip. And our yarn, our working yarn, will be in the back. Now we're going to take our second needle and we're going to insert it into the left side or the front of this loop. Now we're going to take our working yarn and we're going to wrap it around that back needle counterclockwise and then pull it back through the front. You can see this puts our new loop in front of the old loop, and we've just made our first stitch. So we're going to put our needle in the front, wrap our yarn around counterclockwise, and bring our new loop back through, and then we just slide the old loop off the left needle. So a couple more times, we go in through the front, around counterclockwise, and take our new loop out. In through the front, wrap our yarn counterclockwise, and back out through the front. And now you know how to work a knit stitch. A couple notes: when you get to the end of your row, you'll just turn your work around. So I'll show you that. We're just gonna keep knitting till we get all the stitches off of our left needle. And now we've reached the end of our row, and so we're just going to turn the work around so that now these loops we just finished are our working stitches now, and then we just start back over. Now if you keep knitting both sides, we get garter stitch, which I showed you in video 1, which is where you'll have those ridges on each side and you have a double-sided piece of work. Be sure to watch the next video to learn how to make a purl stitch, where your loop is going to go the other way, allowing you to create stockinette stitch and so many more stitches. So be sure to ask any questions in the comments if you have any, and have fun knitting. Bye!